she's coming towards us, and I'm doing all this, and I hear Eddie in this little kind of choir boy, little voice going, "Oprah, may I have a photo with you? It would be my dream." And Oprah went, "You gotta get bigger dreams."
My name is Bethy Atkins, and on behalf of Harvard Bookstore, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this evening's event with ALAN Cumming and Jared Bowen, discussing ALAN's book, You Gotta Get Bigger Dreams, My Life in Stories and Pictures. ALAN Cumming's day job is acting, and most recently he was seen on TV as Eli Gold in the CBS drama The Good Wife, on Broadway in his Tony Award-winning role as the Master of Ceremonies in Cabaret, and in concert, touring the world with his cabaret show, ALAN Cumming Sings Sappy Songs. Please join me in welcoming ALAN Cumming and Jared Bowen.
Wow. Oh.
Almost tipped over there.
Drunk.
Not yet. So, do we talk about Oprah now, or do we wait till the end of the talk?
Whenever you like. I have to say, I feel like there can't be many people in America who've not heard me tell the Oprah story.
Well,
but
we'll just tease it out.
I feel like such a whore. I just feel like I've told this story. I've got quite good at telling the story, though.
Well, maybe we'll save it.
Yes.
Are you allowed to just write about Oprah, or do you have to go through a certain vetting process? Is there like the Oprah National?
Well, I did tell Gail.
Did you?
I saw Gail at a screening thing, and she was sort of asking me what I was doing. I said, "I've written this book, and actually, you know, the title of it is something that Oprah said." And so I told her all about it. So I hope, there's been no edict from on high asking me to cease and desist.
Well, to give people a flavor of the book, You Gotta Get Bigger Dreams, will you start with a reading for us?
Yes.
One about maybe chest hair?
Yes, I happen to have one. Just in this tombola of stories. So this is a story called Chest Piece, spelled P-E-A-C-E. Oh, my glasses. What are they? God. I'm generally pretty happy with my body, but I do wish I had a hairy chest. This fine specimen is not mine, alas. I'm hairy everywhere else, annoyingly. My legs are forests. My arm hair I sometimes have to trim as it gets a little unruly. And as for my armpits, they positively gush with hirsuteness. My butt, I could go on. Just not my chest. Well, there's a little bit, a sort of weird, straggly copse at my sternum. The rest of my body hair is pretty wavy, so this looks like someone has glued on a tuft from some girl's abandoned weave. I once grew so sick of its solitude, I shaved it off, only to discover a newfound appreciation as I realized it acted as shading and gave my pecs some much-needed definition. I'm ever hopeful, though. I remember when my dad got a hairy chest. He must have been in his late 30s or early 40s, and one day I saw him change his shirt and was shocked to see he had sprouted a flurry of down across his upper chest that hadn't been there before. Sadly, I'm now 50 and nothing approaching a sprout, a flurry, or down has emerged. To be honest, there have been a few stragglers around my nipples, and on my left pec, as you look down from my vantage point, there is an almost respectable cluster. Though, as this is not nearly matched on my right side, I mostly shave them off in the interest of symmetry, or lack of. So instead, I admire others' chests. Is it because I'm so lacking that I enjoy these so much? I've thought long and hard about this, and I think, no. Here's another couple. For me, a hairy chest equals man. Just like a curvy ass and ample tits equal woman. I like both for the same reasons. It's just less easy to get snaps of the latter in public places. Although... That's it. Yeah.
I just noticed that your masterpiece boss is here. You are the man of
Hey, how are
mystery
you?
after all.
I'm Alan Cumming. This is Masterpiece Mystery. But they're all here.
So let me
Class outing.
start by asking about your photography. And you start off, so this has always been part of your life. In what role has photography been part of your life?
Sort of, I kind of think I, journal and catalogue my life by photographs. And I think I have always done that. I mean, the first story in the book's about the first camera I got when I was a little boy. And I think that because it was such a precious thing to me, this camera, and now, of course, we can take a million photos, I'm actually not like that. I'm quite a snapper, and then I leave it. And I actually like the happy accident part of photographs. But I've always really felt that I'm not big on kind of, smiling for the camera, I guess because I have to do that so much in my real life, in my work life. And I never really, I don't like the idea that people are just, chatting like this, and then someone takes a photo and you go, because that's not really indicative of what was just happening, Mm-hmm. I hate when people smile for that. I mean, and I hate sometimes when people, ask me for a photograph, and they say, "Smile, Alan," and I'm going, "No, I won't." I don't want to smile. And I think that's, people can't, especially in this country, they can't understand why you don't want to smile.
It's like Victorian times, they never smiled.
No, that's right. I actually quite prefer that. But that was because they had to stand still for a long time.
Yeah.
It's actually harder to smile for a long time. Also, the other thing I really don't like is when people can smile and not move their eyes. So their eyes don't crinkle, and so it's just like they're kind of you see a chimpanzee with its teeth like that, and everyone thinks it's cute because it's smiling. That's actually how a chimpanzee shows terrible anger. And so whenever I see someone who can smile without moving their eyes, I think of them as a rabid chimp about to attack me.
So you mentioned cataloging, and what was it like then to go back through your catalog of photographs and to tell your story here?
Well, it was quite overwhelming, I mean, in a way I had to try and be ruthless and there were certain pictures I knew I wanted to write about, and certain stories I already was in the process of writing that I knew there was photos that would augment. But you can go down a rabbit hole a bit, especially when you're old and you've taken a lot of photos over the years. And I did another thing where a few years ago I got all the photographs that I'd taken that were in hard copy. I got them scanned, so every photo I've ever taken that I still have is digitalized. So that made that was a great reach. So you have to just have to trust your instincts and be ruthless. And photos that, it's like kind of when I do my concerts, sometimes I think I really want to sing certain songs, and then I'll find them and start working on them, and I realize that, nah, this doesn't work. Same with photos. It's a gut thing.
Were there, as you were going through them all and you were seeing your life in pictures, this is the Oprah question, were there revelations?
I mean, yes. I mean, sometimes actually in the photographs themselves, because I'm like, who's that? And there's a photo, there's a double-page photo in it of, I went to say hello to my friend and Darren in this bar that I always go to in New York called Eastern Bloc, and I took a sort of selfie of us in the DJ booth. Little did I know there was two boys in harnesses making out right behind me. So that was an interesting revelation when I, looked at my camera the next day. But I think the biggest revelation is what I've found during this book tour that I'm on. Because, talking about the book and sort of somewhat analysing it for myself, I realise it's a sort of love letter to my dog, really. And a sort of in a way for me to let go of her. It's like she's so all over this book. That she's on the cover, and she died. And so it's sort of, in a good way, me letting go and but celebrating her as I let her go, And I didn't realize that at all. I just thought, it was kind of dog heavy. But that's my life.
But she was very much a muse.
Yes, she was. And she was a great model. I mean, I know that sounds, but she would actually, if I wanted to take a picture of her and I didn't get it, I would go, "Oh, honey, will you do that again?" And she did. She would do it. And there's a story called Head Down, Eyes Up, which is, that. And she would do that. I would say, "Honey, I'm going to take a picture of you," and she'd go. I don't know where she got it from.
And you and Honey traveled across country. You and I have something in common.
What?
We have both been to the Corn Palace
Shut up.
in Mitchell, South Dakota.
Oh my God, isn't it great, Gary?
It is great.
I loved it. That was I made a special stop off to go there, and I actually expected it to be a palace made of corn. It's actually just a palace, well, like a building that's got corn stuck to it. I was saying it'd be like Madison Square Garden, like with random vegetables attached to it. That's what you have to think. So it was kind of disappointing in that respect, but it was hilarious. Yeah, I did this trip across America one time because I didn't want to fly Honey, and I'd just been away for a long time. And anyway, we just did this really great odyssey, and it was really a fascinating thing to, be alone with a dog and going through America and going through 2 different parts and listening to the radio and hearing political opinions and also just things like observations like the farther you get into America, the bigger the receptacles for coffee get. And like one time I was at a truck stop somewhere and I came out with something that resembled a bucket.
I was thinking about that because I've done that cross-country trip a couple times, and you really get exposed to things in a way that you're not anticipating because this country is so large, because the populations are so different. As you mentioned, politics vary wildly depending on regions. So I was wondering about you as an actor and how that informs you, if you study those people, if you study situations and how drastically different they are.
Well, I think it's really important to, as an artist of any kind actually, to be aware of what is happening in the world or in the country where you live. Just to be cognizant of these great extremes, as you say. And but it was more really for me as a person. I found it really eye-opening, and it made me realize there's certain things I think about America that are weird, and but well, there's a lot, but I'm weird too, so there we are. But I actually thought this idea of this sort of cohesive, amorphous lump that it's the United States of America. By its very name, it's a unity of disparate things, right? I get that part, but there is an idea that there's an American spirit. There's lots of American things, and they don't actually make sense to me, because if you were to go from, I often fly from Los Angeles to New York, and if you were to do that same distance of flight from London, you could go to Africa, and yet no one would expect all of Europe and the Mediterranean, everything in between you, to be thought of as one entity, a cohesive entity that might share so many qualities. So I think it's a mistake to think that America has got this kind of central, cohesive spirit. And I think that's partly the problem with why people can't understand each other in this country, because we are all trying to feel that we are the same, and we're not.
Do you ever shy away from talking about what you haven't really shied away from? I don't know why I asked that question, because
I
know the answer.
Was I not?
But about political situations, whether it be Scotland and their exit, or the upcoming election here in this country, and there are a lot of...
I don't. I'm very vocal. I think I'm a very vocal person. It's not because I don't... are you all right? Did I do something funny? Marvelous. Was it the fact I was about to mention Donald Trump that sent me into frenzy? But it's not, I've never thought that I should not say what I feel or be the person I am in order to somehow affect my career. I've never done that. And that's not, I'm not wearing that as a badge of honor, I'm just saying that's just who I am. So I feel things as a person, and I have a platform where I get to speak to people. And I don't see, if you've come to see me today, then I don't see why I should monitor myself when it's the reason that you're here is to see me. So I feel, I have great, especially right now when there's really terrifying things happening in this country, I think it's important for people to speak out, because I think really a huge problem, massive problem, is the way the media, no offense, has absolutely dropped the ball in terms of fact-checking and taking to task of Donald Trump and all the lies that he espouses on a daily basis, and nobody is allowed to say them, and these people just go and don't say that's not true. I've noticed today they're starting to do these actually the New York Times started to call them lies. There was a report about how the Times has changed its language on Donald Trump and actually said lies, actually blatantly saying that. Finally, yes. But I do think the political media has been so lax, and I get it. Donald Trump's, good for viewers. He's so nuts. He says, revoltingly outrageous things. You can't look away. It's like this awful car crash that we have, that is coming to life, and we're in the car crash now. But I just think that the media they're not. I thought journalists were supposed to, call out people and not just report things, but to actually challenge people, and that's been so lacking. And I think we'll all look back on this time, and hopefully we'll just be like, phew, it nearly happened. But if it does happen, and we are dragged back to the Middle Ages, like he wants us to be, I think it will be a major fault of the media. And my other little soapbox I want to talk about, I think Donald Trump's rise to whatever he is right now, but his great potential chance of becoming the leader of this country is a lot to do with the way this country does not value education enough. And there are so many uneducated people in this country. And I mean, and by that I mean people who don't have access to education. They don't have the money. There isn't free education for them. I'm not being, well, I am, I suppose, but it's not their fault. It's because this country doesn't put enough value on education to let everyone be educated properly. So we have a generation of people who aren't educated, who don't analyze, who just believe whatever they're told. If it's repeated enough in front of them, they'll think that's the truth. And that is Donald Trump's triumph. And again, I think it's something that we all will look back on and think, why did we not sort that out? Why, if we have a large swathe of the country that is not uneducated, we're going to get uneducated choices in our politics.
I mean,
I'm done now. Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me do that.
Yeah. Some of the media, I think, has been doing their job. But we'll discuss this later.
Yes.
Yeah. Only Connect is the tattoo that you have on your arm.
Yes.
And you've written very frankly about your life. You speak very frankly. Where does that ethos come from to be so forthright and so bare?
I think a variety of places. But I do feel that so much of my childhood was about silence and not being allowed to express myself, not being allowed to, having a very abusive father made this atmosphere for not just me, for my brother and my mum, where you couldn't connect, you couldn't, you weren't connecting, and you couldn't just express yourself and say what you wanted or say or comment on the crazy things that were happening. So there's a whole thing from my childhood about this inability to call out what was going on. And also I just feel, more recently again, the stuff that happened with my father when I wrote about in my last book, that the lack of connection in my family meant that there was a man who died playing Russian roulette. My grandfather died playing Russian roulette in Malaysia, and we didn't know this. And also the lack of connection and honesty meant that my father told me that I was not his biological son, even though I was. And it's just so this lack of transparency and just connection, I feel it's not just. I want it in my work because I think that's, if you're an artist of any kind, you just want to connect with people, make sure that you're being understood, and make sure that what you are trying to say or paint or film is being received by the audience in the way that you want it to be received. So that's something that's very much a part of my work. But in my life as well, I've seen so many examples of where not being open and not being truthful just lead to disaster. So it's a pretty holistic thing for me. That's why I got it tattooed on my arm.
How did you go from that to the courage to being an artist?
You mean in my childhood? I just always wanted to. I mean, I don't think it was necessarily a courageous thing. It's just something that I liked and I was good at. And as I grew older, I realized that I could say more, and it was more than just being an actor. I actually had something I wanted to do with my life that my job helped me do. So it wasn't, but it was just, really I became an actor because it was the only thing I was ever good at. It was the first thing I was ever good at. And I just stuck to it. And I'm not really good at that many other things. I mean, I think what I do, all these different things are kind of the same thing. You know what I mean? Like being a writer or sort of a photographer and a producer or whatever, an actor, a singer, whatever. They're all within the same. I think I'm like a storyteller. And so that's all I've ever known, and I've not been able to do anything else. And I haven't wanted to, so that's good.
I was so struck in the book when you're talking about singing and your first big concert at the Hollywood Bowl, and you weren't confident that you could be a singer. I mean, you made such a splash out of cabaret, and so many people identify. You were just singing last night out in where?
Amherst.
Amherst.
But you don't pronounce the H. Thanks. But that's different when you're singing. I talk about this in my show, actually. It's different when you're playing a character. Like when you're a character, it's not you, and I always think about it as this veil of the veil of the character between you and the audience. And when it's just you, I mean, and also, if you're going to do a show, my show's called Alan Cumming Sings Sappy Songs. It's pretty much me, and I'm telling stories about my life. I'm singing in my own voice, literally like this, and it's a very different thing. There's no one to hide behind, and there's no one. I better know what I feel about all these songs and what I feel about how I'm. It's a lot of vulnerability because I'm talking about my life, and and just expecting people to to come and pay to see that, and but it's mostly just this thing of, there is no character, there is no structure to it in the way that you normally have, and so, but the connection you get with an audience is so much more intense because it's really, I feel I'm being, not just like, oh, I hope they like the way I'm performing this character. It's like, I really think you're understanding me, who I am as a human being, and that's a great, great thing.
What happens when you do a show like the Macbeth that you did that was just, it was essentially mostly all on you? It was a very small cast. I don't know if anybody here saw it on Broadway a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
How do you feel a connection to an audience then, much different circumstance?
Well, that was an interesting fusion, because again, I'm playing a character, obviously, characters, all the parts in Macbeth, but also I was playing someone. It was an interesting thing. So I was playing, for those of you who didn't see it, I come on and there's a nurse and a doctor and something terrible's happened. I've got this big scratch. I'm being undressed and they're taking things from underneath my fingernails and swabbing my thing, and I'm put into these, sort of pajamas for a hospital. Something weird's gone down, and so I'm this person, and then I'm in this sort of observation room in a hospital, and then as they walk out at the end of this sequence, when I'm, kind of all weepy and weird, and then naked, and then they dress me again. At the end of it, I turn and there's a man and a woman and me, and I go, when shall we three meet again? And that's the start of Macbeth. So in some way, this person performs the play of Macbeth for a sort of, as it turns out, a sort of a way to exercise his demons about something that's happened to him before he's come into this room. So it was an interesting thing because I was playing a character, playing lots of characters, but also what I found, but it was very much like Alan Cumming, Macbeth. It was very much, and it was me. And there was bits in it when I was very in danger, physically in danger. It was dangerous. And there was a bit, especially when the audience thought I was drowning. And when we did it in Glasgow before we did it on Broadway, and so the stage was like this, and then the audience was raked. So the front row of the audience was on the same level as me. And when I was in that bit in the bath, like you couldn't see me, but you saw these monitors, and it was cameras pointing down at me, but it was pre-recorded. So I wasn't really even under the water. But I could feel people want to rush the stage and grab me, like me, Alan. Like they were worried for me, and like I said that, and people were like, "Oh my God!" I was like this close, and I could hear this unsettled thing, and people were like, "What's going on?" And then when I came up, I got this little funny light cue way up in the thing, and I would come up, and people would scream, and it was just a really incredible moment where I think it transcended a character and an actor playing a character, and people were genuinely worried for me as well. And so that was a really fascinating way, because I felt like I was connecting. It was kind of going through the normal layer of playing a part in a play, and actually people actually thought I was in danger, really me. So that was fascinating.
How do you stay in character in those moments where you're having that awareness?
Oh, well, I had that little moment of it. That was a break when I went under the water, and you saw it on the screens, but you couldn't see me because I was at the back of the stage in this bat. And I did all kind of, pushing myself down acting, and then my, twitching acting, and then going limp acting. So, and then you see me, and I'm just all bubbles and things like that, and then the bubbles stop. So I was actually like leaning against the bath going, it's the most restful part of the whole evening.
And there,
that was why. That was how.
There I was that night with my oxygen tank ready to run up and
Smoke and mirrors.
My favorite picture, I think, in the book is of, well, it's not really of Liza Minnelli, but it's kind of Liza Minnelli, but as a cookie.
Mm-hmm. It's a picture I took at her. She had a birthday party in her flat, and she used to have great birthday parties in our New York flat where people would all sing around the piano and everything. And there was this cake, and there's little cupcakes which said Liza on them. And then there was a cake and a sort of a little chocolate cutout of Liza in her Liza with a Z outfit, that shiny red thing. But it had fallen off the cake onto the table, and her arm had kind of like was removed from her body. So I took a snap of it, and there's like some cupcakes, and then there's Liza, and I said it's actually the perfect sort of summing up of her. She's a bit broken, but she's still sparkling.
It's very sweet.
I saw her last week actually. I was in LA on my book tour, and she lives in LA now, and I went round a couple of times, and she was in great form. She really loves the book, and she said she wants me to read this story I wrote about her at her funeral. I know. And I said, that's really morbid, Liza, and she went, it's not. And I was like, well, it's not, I suppose. No. And then I was there in the spring making a film, and I have a dog called Lala who's with me, and Liza has 3 dogs, and I would go and visit quite a lot, and because she wasn't very well, and Lala loved her dogs loved Lala, and they were all boys, and she was all like, but at one point they were all running around Liza's bedroom, and Lala was doing that thing of not, and then she shot off and was running, and all the boy dogs were chasing her, and Liza went like this. She went, "Go, Liza!" I mean Lala. And I thought it was so beautiful because it was like Liza wanted to be Lala. She wanted to be running around like that. It was just a really lovely moment.
I won't run through all of the celebrity stories, but I have to ask about the Elizabeth Taylor one too, because I'm sure anybody here is fascinated about anything involving Elizabeth Taylor. I've interviewed Carrie Fisher, so I can only imagine how this story went down, but how did you come to be reprimanded by Carrie Fisher?
I was invited to her birthday party, Carrie's party, and I was early, like the first person to arrive. It's never happened. And the second person to arrive was Elizabeth Taylor. And so I'm like in this little lobby of Carrie's house, sort of a hallway, sitting there like, and Carrie went, "You two just chat, I've got to go and do, hostessy things." So I'm sitting there with Elizabeth Taylor, and we're a bit like, and she kind of like fiddled around in her bag, and I was like, this is disaster. So I went into the living room, and there was a bar set up, and so I got this stiff drink, and Carrie came in and was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, she went, "Do you know how many homosexuals would like to be in your position right now?" and she said, "Get back in there and flank that legend." So I did. I went back in, and I was like, "Hi, Elizabeth, I'm here to flank you." And that got her attention, and we just started chatting and had an absolute hoot of a time, and really got on well, and then people started to arrive, and and then but she let me, touch her ring. I said, like, she had the big, enormous one that Richard Burton gave her on, and she said, I went, wow, look at that, and she went, have a look, and I looked at it, and then she went, don't get your fingerprints on it. I was like, I could get my entire hand on it. I've seen smaller New York apartments. I mean, larger New York apartments.
When you
smaller.
look at people like Liza Minnelli and Elizabeth Taylor, does all of that merge, the perception of them, the icon element of them, the monument, and then whoever they might be as just a regular private individual?
Well, it's sort of because, like, there's still this thing, like, if I say, I went to this, when I was in LA the other day, I went for this meeting at a network about this show I'm maybe going to do. And then as we were leaving, we're all like, oh, how exciting, all went well. And I said, oh, could someone give me a lift, blah, blah. And he said, where are you going? I went, oh, I'm going to visit my friend Liza Minnelli. And they're like, what? Shut up. So in a way, like, other people's, it still feels crazy because of other people's reaction to it, And it's just like, she's like, Liza is like my friend, and she's like this lady that I just bizarrely got to know and grown to love over the years, and I visit her and we get on like a house on fire again. Like, I don't know, I just kind of, I'm able to connect with people. But especially people who, we've got it doesn't make sense in a way why we would get on, but that's actually what I think is great about life. I've got a very wide collection of friends, and of all ages and genders and everything, and I really like that. There's no rhyme or reason, and actually I see that in my mom. Like, I was just in Edinburgh doing the Edinburgh International Festival with my Alan Cumming Sings Sappy Songs, and my mum came to the last. She was there for the last performance and came to the Club Cumming night that I DJ at, and stayed there till 3:30 in the morning. She's 78, and I just think, God, I've got that. I feel like I could just take my mum anywhere, and she always gets. And there was a guy who did this show as Jesus. This really nice guy called Chris. He did a performance on the Fringe in Edinburgh as Jesus, and my mum's, and he came to Club Cumming, did a little guest spot, and we loved him so much we had him on every night, because he would walk through the audience as Jesus, and then he would start stripping, and to fame, I'm going to live forever. It's so funny. And it was like, a little 5-minute segment. It was just brilliant. And he had a fan that came on and everything. And anyway, my mom is called Mary, and so all she wanted was, she kept going, will you send me that picture of Jesus and Mary? Because when they met, I went, look, Mum, it's Jesus and Mary. And like, I forgot to send it to her, and she was like adamant to get it. I just loved it. That was her biggest get during the Edinburgh Festival. But I think I think I've inherited that. I just think it's the thing about being open to life. If you just go, you can get on with anybody, and you can find something to chat about with most people, even people who you don't share many opinions with. And actually, I think it's an interesting thing that I notice when I do my concert in venues and in places where I feel like, probably most of the people here do not share my political affiliations, like in Arizona and things, and Palm Beach. I played the Palm Beach Country Club. I was like, well, how did this happen? And we were, me and my band were just laughing the whole time. And when we were doing the sound check, the guy from the country club said to me, so it's kind of a conservative crowd, Alan, so no penis jokes. and I said, so I can talk about my penis but not be funny. Because my show is full of penis jokes, like loads. But actually, I acknowledged that when I was doing the show. I acknowledged the fact that he'd said that, and I was just like, oh my God, it's another penis joke, sorry. And also, I wrote a song a few years ago about plastic surgery, and I sang it on purpose at the Palm Beach Country Club. It's a room full of people with plastic surgery. And the chorus goes, don't go to the plastic surgeon anymore. He won't tell you you're looking like Zsa Zsa Gabor. I've not seen your eyebrows move since 2004. So I sang this song, and actually, because I'd acknowledged them, afterwards they were like, "Oh, our favorite bit was the plastic surgery song." And I find in situations like that, if you go into a situation and you're just authentic and honest, and you're your own man, and you say what you feel, people respect you perhaps more than if you were someone who agreed with their politics. It's a really amazing lesson in life that, and hopefully you can change their opinions because they're allowing you to say things that they find contentious and still loving you.
So I think we have just time for me to ask you now about Oprah before we take some audience Q&A.
Well, Jared, so why the book's called You Gotta Get Bigger Dreams. So I feel such a whore right now because I've said that I've told this on probably like 10 talk shows in the last couple of weeks, but it's a good story, so it's worth telling again. So,
has anybody not heard the Oprah story to make Alan feel better? See.
You haven't? Oh, great.
This is Cambridge. Nobody has a TV.
Oh, I did it on NPR though.
Oh.
You know, my favorite, I was on Leonard Lopate, you know, he's the New York one, sort of lunchtime arty person in New York on NPR. And there's a part in the story when I tell the Going Across America story, I talk about how annoying it was to have to listen to the NPR pledge drive when there's all these right-wing things going on and all you want is NPR and they're on a pledge drive. I was like, shut the f*** up about your NPR totes.
It's very important that we get $90 to give you a mug.
Seriously. I feel it's like a war of attrition. You know what I mean? Eventually you're worn down. You're like, all right, give me the tote. But my favorite ever, I'll get to the Oprah story. My favorite ever headline in The Onion was, and I had it on my fridge, I think I still have it in my fridge upstate, it said, Chardonnay vomited into NPR tote. And I've been to those parties. I know exactly what that was like. Anyway, so my friend Eddie, the reason the book's called You Gotta Get Bigger Dreams is my friend Eddie is obsessed with Oprah and has also had this huge rise in his Twitter and Instagram following since I've been telling this story on television all the time. So one time a few years ago, I was invited. Oprah was getting an honor from the Elie Wiesel Foundation. You know him, he's this great philosopher and he was a Holocaust survivor and everything. And they were giving her this big honor. And I was invited. And so I said, I took Eddie as my date because I knew it would be, amazing for him. He'd love it. So he was really determined to get a photo of Oprah. And I was like, I'm not going to guarantee that will happen, Eddie. Because he was just, rabid about it, and I just thought I'm not going to humiliate myself by going up to Oprah and asking her to take your photograph. And I said I did emotional blackmail on him. I said, you know what it's like when we're out in a bar or at dinner and people come over and bother me and ask for a photograph and how much that pisses you off. He's like, I see your point. I still want a photo with Oprah. So anyway. It's a long story, and lots of things happened. Like I nearly killed a octogenarian by knocking his stick out of the way when I saw David Bowie in Iman, but he was fine. And but what happened was, so we're at the big thing, and there's an enormous big table, well, a large long table of Oprah and all her sort of circle of luminaries like Jesus and Barbara Walters is talking, and Ishtak Perlman's comes on, and Jesse Norman sings. It's crazy. And Barbara Walters says, after the intermission, Oprah. And so we're and Gail had come over and said hello. So we're like, we got the nearness of Oprah was, and then so Eddie was saying, I took a picture of Oprah with Gail's bum because she was chatting to us and having a lovely time, Gail. Yeah, and she turned away to speak to someone. Her bum was right there. I was like, and then when she went away, I could see Oprah way in the distance. So I was trying to do Eddie in the foreground and her away there and trying to make him happy in some way. So anyway, she then stood up out of my frame. I was like, oh, Oprah. Really got it. And then I took Grant, my husband's camera, because I was trying to get, so I wasn't used to it. The Zoom was weird. And I realized that the reason Oprah had stood up was because she was walking towards us, because she was going to the loo. Because Oprah pees. And we were right. We were seated by the loos. We thought we had a Siberian table, but actually it wasn't so bad. So anyway, and I realized, I see her path. I'm like, Eddie, she's coming. She's going to go right past us. And he's like, what? And I'm trying to zoom the thing, and well, I should get the photo ready.
Do you want me to do that?
Would
while
you do it?
talking?
Yeah. And so she's coming towards us, and I'm doing all this, and I hear Eddie in this little kind of choir boy, little voice going, Oprah, may I have a photo with you? It would be my dream. And Oprah went, you gotta get bigger dreams. And then, thank you. So then I took the picture, and this is the picture. Like, a terrible picture. But actually, I think it's perfect, because Oprah is a goddess, and she can only be half present. And Eddie was a bloody mess of joy. And I think it's really amazing, because even though after she went to the loo, I was like, did she just diss you? But actually, I think she really didn't. She really said something, even in that moment of being bugged by a, fangirl boy, she was able to say something wise, because he does need to get bigger dreams. Like, his dream shouldn't just be to get a photo with Oprah. And I think actually now, in a way, she then released him from that dream, because now he's done it. So she's just, a sage of the 21st century. That's why it's called You Got to Get Bigger Dreams.
See, they loved it. Now because you touched this book, we're gonna auction this off on NPR. So now we have some time for some audience questions.
You said that you only wanted to be an actor, and I know you said that was the only thing you wanted to do, but if you weren't an actor, what would you be?
Oh, well, I mean, I do a lot of different things within my arty umbrella, so I feel I've got a lot, but I think if I weren't any of those things, if I wasn't an actor, a writer, or singer, whatever, I would probably be a gardener. I really would like to be a gardener.
Okay. Cool. Oh, no!
Well, I tell you why.
Yes.
Because I really think all the people who I know who are gardeners or, do things like that are very, they're very quiet and calm. I'm calm, but I'm not very quiet. And I really, I admire that in others, that they seem to have a lot of time. I would love the time to just be doing things, and thinking and not talking. I sadly don't get very much of that in my life, but I find gardeners, people who do gardens and things, very sexy.
Okay. Thank you.
Any gardeners here tonight?
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
I have a garden. I have two. I heard you with John Benjamin Hickey.
Oh, you did?
On my favorite song, and I'd love to hear more about the music in your life and what music means to you. It was a wonderful.
Oh, thanks very much. This is this show on Sirius XM.
Radio Andy.
Radio Andy. Andy Cohen's got a radio channel now. And my friend John Benjamin Hickey, who was in Cabaret the first time, does this thing called My Favorite Song. And so it's such fun. You go on and you to choose all these different, your favorite love song, your favorite disco song, your favorite, Christmas song, your favorite duet, all these things. And you just talk about them and you talk over them as they're happening. And I actually feel like whenever people say to me, what kind of music do you listen to? I think, because I feel like music's just something that is like eating in a way that there's certain foods I like, of course, but I'm willing to try anything apart if it's vegan. But that wasn't a good example. But I feel that I love things like Spotify as much as I don't like the way they have diminished artists' revenue. I really love the idea you can just like type something in and hear anything you want to in the world, because that's like my dream, really. I just feel that, I'm going to listen to a piece of Richard Strauss, and now I'm going to Miley Cyrus, and now I'm going over here. And I just love that. I think that music is something that is just completely a mood enhancer for me, and a mood creator as well.
I know this next questioner. This is a friend of mine. This is Debbie first. Alan, meet Debbie first.
Hi, Debbie.
Debbie, meet Alan.
Oprah moment. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. I
Me
wonder
too.
if you would indulge us at the end with a little bit of a song.
Absolutely not. No. No.
It's my Oprah moment. I
Yeah.
understand if you won't, but you've given us a great night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But I'm not going to sing because I think that I'm not a show pony. And this is a literary occasion, ladies and gentlemen. But I also think I still don't like I talk about in my book, the idea of now standing up and singing is starting to give me palpitations. There might be moisture in parts of my body. And that's why I'm not going to. But if I was prepared and if I knew I was going to do it, I think it's all about preparation. You know, if you feel confident. I realized I used to hate the idea of singing as me because I wasn't confident about it and I wasn't practiced in it. And so now that I am, it's easier. But I'm not practiced at singing in a church. I'm surprised there's not been like lightning bolts.
Yeah, I have to say, it is strange seeing you in a church. That was kind of a strange thing, but I think you're magnificent. The first time I saw you in Cabaret, I was so starstruck. I saw you after the show, and I couldn't speak. Does anyone make you starstruck or intimidated, or is there someone that would make you that way?
Yes, people. Yes, I mean it's kind of unusual. I mean, you know, often like people, I think starstruck is a lot to do with the fact that these people you never think you're going to meet them, and so actors and stuff. And famous people like that, it is fairly likely that I'll meet them. And so they don't, I mean, some people I'm like, holy shit. But often it's people I've maybe worked with them or I've met them and it's not, you know, it's not as weird. I tell you who the last people who made me starstruck were. I was doing my Alan Cumming Sings Happy Songs in Edinburgh, and the poet laureate of the United Kingdom, Carol Ann Duffy, she came to see my show and she brought with her Jackie Kay, who's the poet, it's called the Makar, that's the Scottish word for poet laureate. So these two national poets, one of Scotland and one of Britain, came to my show, and they came to the bar afterwards and said they loved my use of words. And I totally freaked out. I was sitting downstairs, I actually cried.
Yeah, I cried when I saw you.
There we go. Hi.
Hi. I don't know if this is getting too deep, but I just was wondering how you went yourself and made the journey from, you know, not being able to talk about things like within your family to now being, you know, outspoken and being able to talk about things comfortably and not worrying about that kind of thing.
Well, I think it's partly to do with the fact that I understand what it's like not being able to have a voice. And so I feel it's my duty to speak up about things that I think are wrong or unjust. And also I do think it's partly about being Scottish. I think we're kind of loud and, you know, say what we feel, and also are very, I think the biggest thing I remember from like school and growing up, like if I was to think of one phrase that I always think of when I think of Scotland, it would be, that's not fair. And I think we use that all the time because it's being fair and just, it's really sort of in our DNA. And I think, you know, it's hard to describe what the difference is when you are in a country where that's what everyone thinks, compared to a country where just some people think that. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I have two questions.
Check your boots out. Oh my God. Sparkly cowboy boots down here.
Old gringo. So I have two questions. One, can you name your top 3 films for style?
Oh, wow. Do you mean
And-
style as in
Fashion.
fashion?
Or
Okay.
the way it's shot. Like mine's Anti-Mame would be my top one.
I love Anti-Mame.
Me too.
Yeah.
My top favorite movie.
Life is a banquet and most poor suckers are starving to death.
Exactly. And the second part would be, can you name 3 books that have transformed your life? Your
Oh,
3
God.
top books.
I told you we're in Cambridge.
I know, yeah. Might have emailed those through earlier for my assistant to make up some answers to them, but well, I think I would say Anti-Mame is one of my favorite. I mean, I love the way when the light comes down like that, the spotlight, and it's actually really, they're doing that with lights. It's not an effect afterwards at the end of each scene. Do you know Anti-Mame with Rosalind Russell? So fantastic. I love that one. I was just actually the other day in the hotel, one of the many hotels I've been in, I was looking at a documentary about Luchino Visconti, and his films are so incredible. And like, I worked once with Marisa Berenson. She's an actress and a model, and she was in Cabaret. She was like the Jewish girl in Cabaret, and so there's a Liza connection there too. But we did a play on Broadway together. But she's the mother of Tadzio in Death in Venice, and so it's funny. I was watching this thing the other day, and I saw her, and I love the sensibility of his films. So that's 2. And 3. Oh, do you know what I loved? I don't know if this is quite really what you're talking about, but the film about Valentino. There was a documentary about Valentino a couple of years ago. I've met Valentino and his partner Giancarlo. Business partner now, a few times, and I just loved the way that captured their relationship. And I love, like, there's a. I've been at a thing where I've actually seen this happen, like people squirting a little thing of fragrance as Valentino walks along. So they go ahead of him going, squirt, squirt, squirt. And he just goes, the world smells sweet. So like that. And then what was the second part? 3 things?
3 books.
3 books. I would say there's an amazing book called The Trick is to Keep Breathing by Janice Galloway. That she's a Scottish writer. And I always say it kind of stupidly, and it's a bit of a kind of a crass thing to say, but it's kind of like a Scottish Catcher in the Rye, because it's about someone having a breakdown in vastly different circumstances to Catcher in the Rye. But what it shares with Catcher in the Rye is that you completely feel you are in that person's head, and it's amazing. I would exhort you all to read it. Also, another book I love is called After Leaving Mr. Mackenzie by Jean Rhys. And she's this crazy woman. She was a young writer, and she was in Paris with this big American novelist guy with 2 of the same names. Can't remember. But anyway, she was this kind of, young starlet and kind of a bit wild, and wrote a couple of books. And then she kind of and After Leaving Mr. Mackenzie's about the way that a woman who's totally financially reliant on a man, and a married man she's having an affair with, he suddenly stops sending her the checks. And what do you do? This is the 1920s, and it's brilliant. It's sort of this real proto-feminist kind of book. And then what was amazing about her was that, like, about 60 years later, she had this big revival, and people discovered her again. And she was like this drunk old lady in Cornwall by this point. And she won she had a new book out, and she won the Booker Prize. It wasn't that, but some big literary prize. And she got up and she said, "It's too late." Same, that's that one. And then I think, I was talking about it downstairs, is another woman actually, Margaret Atwood's book. Well, lots of them, but I'm really, I thought of this the other day. I really want to go back and read The Edible Woman. It's such an amazing book. Actually, any young men in the audience who've not had their feminist awakening yet, I would exhort you to read The Edible Woman. It's a brilliant, brilliant book. But the one I really am nuts about is The Blind Assassin. It's just this incredible feat of these 3, it's like 3 novels. You think you're reading 3 novels at once, and you think you're multitasking, and then they all kind of conjoin, and she's a genius.
Thank you.
There you go. Phew, I got through.
Hi. I'm wondering what you would say to other artists, weird theater kids, in a world that doesn't necessarily prioritize arts and theater out there.
Oh, well, I would say, I mean, I always try and say to people, just try and be yourself and find out who you are. And the most interesting thing about you is you and your experience. And that's the most interesting thing that you'll be able to give the world as an artist. So resist the temptation or the pressure you get from other people to become someone you're not or to conform into a box. I would say that.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
What's your sort of favorite role that you've ever?
Favorite role?
Favorite role, sure.
Well.
Or I guess like the funnest to do, or the
funnest.
one you had like. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm not. I just couldn't hear you. The most fun thing the most fun role.
Yeah, like the one you've sort of been able to express yourself creatively the most.
Oh.
Or.
Because that's not the fun answer. Express myself most creatively. I suppose it's in things where I've sort of, like we're talking about with Macbeth, like I've kind of fused me and a role together. Like I did a film a long time ago called The Anniversary Party. I wrote it with Jennifer Jason Leigh, and we wrote kind of ourselves, versions of ourselves, and we wrote all the people who were in it were kind of playing versions of themselves, and actually it worked really well because the audience knew a bit about these people, and then they see them playing kind of those people in a film in it. So it kind of was a really great way to take things one stage further in terms of what you're. And we're actually, Jennifer, I saw her last week as well in LA, and we shot that film in 2000, the anniversary party, and so in 2020, not too long away, it will be 20 years since the anniversary party. So we're thinking of doing an anniversary party 20 years on and seeing what all those characters are. And because it's funny, like the little kids in it who are really Kevin Kline and Phoebe Cates' real kids, they're now big grown-ups, and one's in a band, and you know, the girl's living with her boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. It's horrifying. And I just think it'd be a really fascinating thing to see what people look like 20 years on. You know, it'd be interesting. The Gwyneth character has gone from being a little starlet into, like, you know, Martha Stewart. And it's got a really, I don't know, we're starting to work on that now. So I think that would be one of the things, and certainly in that area of fusing your own experience and also people's perceptions of you with another character, that would be the most satisfying. And my funnest thing ever was being in the Spice Girls film.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My wife and I are huge fans of your Good Wife and your Eli Gold. And
thank you.
And I love just the way the character sort of transformed from being a sleazy operative, political operative, to changing. And that's the scene at the end when you had to tell Alicia Florrick about how you deleted that email.
Oh, yeah.
That was just incredible. I never would have pictured Eli Gold doing that in the beginning of the show. So how was that transformation for you? Did you, as a person, in trying to do the character?
Well, I think it's actually one of the great things about doing a long-running television series, which I'd never experienced before, so I didn't know. And I actually used to hate the idea of not knowing what was going to happen in this. You know, I always had done films or plays, and you always knew the ending. And so for the first time ever, or other TV series I'd done, like in Britain, they always have them all written first. You know, they don't do this weird thing of like, let's do it the night before. In America, it's true though. But I feel it was this idea that your character can grow and expand, and with the writers are really amazing. So, you know, over the years, things happened to him, and actually in the last year of it, I wasn't going to go back. After season 6, I decided I wanted to not do it anymore. I felt I'd done it. I felt I was doing the same thing. I say in my show that some people I think saw last night, like I said, all I do is after season 6 to my agents, I said, all I do is I walk into rooms and go, Alicia, what the hell's going on? And then the very, 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 very next day, I got the script for the next episode, and guess what my first line was? Alicia, what the hell's going on? So in a way, actually, because of that, and because of voicing that sort of ennui, they gave me in season 7 a lot more things to do, a lot more of a range of things for Eli, and I'm really glad I stayed on and did it. But I think it's something that's a thing that grows, and it's sort of a relationship going back and forth between you and the writers. Hello.
Hi. So you had said that the book is kind of a farewell to Honey and a letting go, and you also mentioned Lala, who you were traveling with. I was wondering if dogs have always been a constant in your life, and just how you feel about animals in general, your relationship to dogs.
Well, I had dogs when I was a little boy, and there's another chapter in the book about that. Once I was allowed to, like the camera I first had, my dad wouldn't let me take any more pictures, and so. But then years later, when I was able to, I took these pictures of mine, and I've still got them. They're in the book, of these kind of my dogs modeling badly for me. But then I didn't have a dog until Honey, but I feel, I sort of feel that the idea that people who don't have children use animals as their child substitutes is absolutely true, and I don't see why that should be a bad thing. I think it's we're not overpopulating the planet, and we're rescuing dogs, and I do feel like the great thing about Honey, well, one of the many great things was that actually I learned so much about death and quality of life from her. And I remember there was a moment when she got sick one time, and I actually was like, oh my God, she's going to die before me. And I never thought that, because I just thought of her as my constant companion. I just thought she was like a human and she would just live as long as I would, or, it never, and like, duh, that's kind of a stupid thing to think, but that's how intense my relationship was with her. And then I had to really, when I became the carer, and, well, I guess I was always a carer because I was her human and she was a dog, but that sort of changed. And she really taught me about how, when she was dying, how I want to end my life, and how what I think is valuable about, and what is the quality of life, what that truly is. And I really, really learned so much from her about that. So I'm very, I will be forever grateful to her for that.
Thanks.
And this will be our last question this evening.
No pressure, it better be good.
I'm afraid it might be a little anticlimactic.
No.
So after The Good Wife rescued my wife and me from TV desert after Boston Legal went off the air. But now The Good Wife is also gone.
Yes.
So I wonder, besides Masterpiece Mystery, if you have any recommendations for us.
Well, there's a show on Friday nights on WGBH that Jared hosts, in which I will be appearing this Friday. I'm not actually the best person to answer that, because I actually, I'm very. People get really pissed off with this, but I don't have cable. I don't have it in my home on purpose, and also I have like Apple TV. I can do Netflix and things, and there's other ones. But I think it's really, for me, it's really important that I don't just like. I hate when I go around to people's houses and they've got the telly on, and we're like, are we watching something? What's going on here? And just this kind of, that's what I don't know. I don't know how people find the time to watch so much television, actually. But, and what is great about doing that, and then also having access to things because of Netflix, that you really, you hone in on the things you want to watch because people have recommended them or people you respect and blah, blah, blah. So I really like, I'll tell you what I'm watching right now. I'm watching The Americans. Have you seen that? I love it. And I'm early on, but I'm just, I can't wait to get back to it, actually. I really felt that I should do my best to get into Game of Thrones. And so I tried, I really try. I am trying very hard. But I always watch it kind of late in the evening after I've had a few drinks, and I fell asleep 4 times during watching the first episode. So on the 5th time, I managed to get all the way through. So I'm on to the 2nd episode now. And then the other thing that I've been sort of curious about recently is this thing called Stranger. Is it The Stranger with Winona Ryder? And I'd never heard of it until last week when I was asked to, on James Corden's show, we did musical versions of television shows, like inappropriate musicals is what it was called. And we did Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, and Stranger Things. And I played Winona Ryder in it. And I'd never seen it, and I didn't know what it was like. And they showed me a clip, and she goes, I can talk to my child through these lights, like that. And so I just did that. And it's so funny because I know Winona, and so I emailed her, and I was like, I am playing you tonight, doing an impersonation of you tonight on James Corden. Hope you're okay with that. And then about 2 days later, I didn't hear from her, and I was like, oh. And then she was like, oh my God, what an honor, you nailed it. So I'm looking forward to seeing Winona's show just to see if my impersonation was accurate. But those would be my 3, I mean, not Game of Thrones, but I mean, I feel that's a duty. It's like Harry Potter. I feel like I'm not going to be a complete member of society unless I have some cognizance of it. But there's that. There's something. Oh, and another thing I love is Billy on the Street. Do you know him? Billy Eichner. He's this comedian actor, but he goes on the streets of New York with a mic, and he just sort of he says to people like, "Here's $1. What do you feel about Brangelina?" And it's so. And my favorite thing, I've been on a lot of planes recently, and he's on Delta. He's always on it, and he does a thing. There was a game. It was these 2 old ladies on the street, and the game was called Bob Dylan or Anal Sex. and the question was like, people have been doing it for centuries, like anal sex, and then like. Some people try to like it, and eventually they do. Anal sex. No, Bob Dylan. So it's like a really hilarious kind of counterculture game show. And my favorite ever thing he did was that Julianne Moore was on his show, and so he took her on the streets, and she had to like do speeches from her best roles to people from the street, and like he would go, "Have you heard of this? Have you heard this film? Have you seen it? Can you believe she was not nominated?" Like that. And at one point, Julianne did some speech, just crying and everything, and he went, "Don't you believe she wasn't nominated for this?" And Julianne went, "I actually was nominated for a Golden Globe." And Billy went, "That doesn't count." So that's my recommendation. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Patty is left in the van across the street from Mel's Sporting Goods by herself, key in the ignition. She can leave if she wants. She can walk away. She can drive away. She doesn't. Bill and Emily go in, and as David said, Bill brilliantly decides to shoplift. The clerk is an aspiring police officer, and he knows that the law of shoplifting is that the crime does not take place until you actually leave the store. So he waits for Bill to leave, then tackles him out on the street.